Hello. My family members are sixth-generation dairy farmers in Wisconsin. My great-great-great-great-grandfather came from Germany in 1849 and started farming here in Wisconsin. Our dairy is the proud caretaker of 1,200 Holstein cows that produce around 10,000 gallons of milk every day. Our cows make their home in our two barns with a milking facility connected in between the barns. Their feed is stored in the large piles behind the barns covered with the white sheets. The manure, or animal pee and poop combination, is stored in the rectangular brown structure to the left of the feed piles. The milk is pumped directly into the tanker trailers. When they are full, the trailers are then pulled to the Sartori cheese factory in Plymouth. All of our milk is processed into cheese, which is sold in grocery stores throughout the world. Our cows are comfortable and happy in their barns. It is the farmer's job to keep the cows as comfortable as possible. Happy cows produce more milk. The orange machine in the middle of the aisle is a robotic feed pusher that pushes the cow's food into them once every 2 hours so they always have something to eat. This is the milking area. We milk every cow 3 times every day, so the milking goes on 24 hours, 7 days a week. These young cows, called calves, are growing up to take the place of their mother as dairy cows. Did you know that last year, the dairy industry in Wisconsin, the cows produced around 35 billion pounds of milk, or approximately 5 billion gallons. It takes 10 pounds of milk to make 1 pound of cheese. So Wisconsin produced 3.5 billion pounds of cheese. The amount of cheese produced here in Wisconsin is enough to give 11 pounds of cheese to each adult in the United States. That is enough cheese for 70 billion pizzas, or enough to put on 5.6 trillion cheeseburgers. If the state of Wisconsin was a country, only the countries of Germany and France would produce more cheese. Most dairy farms in Wisconsin grow the crops that provide food for their animals. I will start by showing you the farming practices that take place on one field throughout the year. This is a typical field for our dairy farm. The fields rest all winter and lay covered in a blanket of snow. When spring comes, everything wakes up. Not only do the cows produce milk, but they also poop and pee a lot. The average cow poops and pees about 80 pounds per day. The poop and pee are called manure, which is a valuable fertilizer used to grow the crops. The first process is incorporating the manure, spreading the poop and pee combination on the fields. We pump the manure through a hose to the tractor, which applies it into the ground. After the manure is applied to the field, it is tilled, which is stirred and mixing the soil by the tractor and the cultivator equipment to prepare it for planting. Just like in the garden, the soil must be soft and loose for the seed to grow. An adult cow weighs around 1,500 pounds, or almost as much as a small car. They also consume almost 120 pounds of food per day. So farmers must raise and store a lot of feed for their animals. When the soil is tilled, it is ready for planting. This field is being planted with corn. The equipment you see here being used is as wide as a 4-lane highway. The machine being pulled by the tractor is a special corn planter. The silver tanks on the front of the tractor hold fertilizer, which is a mix of nutrients that plants need to grow. This field does not require fertilizer because we applied the manure earlier. The white bins on the planter hold the seed the planter is inserting into the ground. After the seed is planted, we apply herbicide or weed preventive to control the weeds so the crop can grow without the competition from weeds and other undesirable plants. The planting and spraying machines are computer monitored to ensure seed and chemicals are applied as accurately and economically as possible. The tractors are GPS controlled and self-driving, so the driver does not steer the tractor when it travels across the field. As you watch the machine travel across the field, think about the complexity of the machine to travel back and forth without the driver turning the steering wheel. Throughout the summer, we monitor the crops to assure they are healthy and growing properly. Even though we do our best to grow the crop, we are still very dependent on the weather and the rainfall. Mother Nature still controls how good of a crop we will harvest. Later in the summer, we need to apply a fungicide to control mold that will reduce the nutrients in our corn stalks. We try to use as minimal amount of chemicals as possible, but we need to provide the proper nutrition for our cows. We need the healthiest plants possible. Again, we are using the GPS system to steer the machine. With the corn stalks as tall as the machine, the driver cannot see where he is going. Once early fall arrives, we begin harvesting the crop. Here we are cutting the green corn stalks for corn silage. Silage is the corn stalks that are cut and chopped into bite-sized pieces while it is still green. This is a large part of the cow's diet, so we need to harvest around 2,000 tons of this crop. Each truck you see holds around 40 tons and takes around 7 minutes to fill. The truck drivers need to be very skilled to keep up with the machine called the forage chopper. The cut corn stalks as silage is hauled to the farm in the trucks where it is unloaded and stored in the covered piles. This is a closer look at the forage chopper cutting the stalks of corn and chopping them into bite-sized pieces. Here again you see the machine being GPS controlled and driving down the field as accurately as possible. After the green corn is harvested, we wait for the rest of the corn plant to mature, produce grain as kernels, and dry out. The field I am documenting was partially cut for silage, and the rest was left for grain corn. Here we are using the combine to harvest the grain. the combine machine separates the kernels from the corn stalks and places it in the trucks. The combine is not GPS controlled, but has a computer guidance system to follow the rows accurately and eliminate driver error and wasted crop. The grain is hauled in the trucks to a location off the farm and stored in bins until it is required to feed the cows. The corn kernels are similar to unpopped popcorn and must be crushed to feed the cows. Once the corn is harvested, we apply more manure so the field is restored to a good condition, adding back the nutrients the corn used to grow. It is very important that we take care of our soil so we can grow the best crops possible to feed our animals. Finally, the field rests again for the winter to begin the cycle the next spring. The next two videos show how we harvest alfalfa hay for feed. After the tractor enters the field, the driver unfolds the cutting machine and gets ready for cutting. He is also selecting this field from the computer so the tractor will drive by itself. This machine is similar to a giant lawnmower that cuts the alfalfa plants and puts them in wide rows to dry. You can see it takes just a couple minutes to get the machine ready to cut. The driver needs to drive the tractor around the field to allow him room to turn around when he drives back and forth, cutting the large portion of the field. Here the driver is not steering the tractor. It is self-driving. The tractor is driving using the GPS system. The next process is moving several of the small rows into one big one. This process is called merging. You can see the rows are much larger, making it more efficient for the forage chopper to harvest. After the hay is put in the larger rows, we harvest the hay using the forage chopper to chop the hay into bite-sized pieces for the cows to eat. This feed is called haylage. It is also moved from the field in the trucks and stored in piles covered with the white sheets. Haylage is also a very important food for the animals, and we harvest thousands of tons every year. Alfalfa is a perennial crop, which means it grows back without having to be replanted every year. After cutting the plant, it grows back quickly, so we can have 4 harvests of haylage every year. As we watch these farming operations, I would like you to think about all the things needed to make this operation happen. Look at what each piece of equipment requires to operate, what went into making the machine, what keeps the machine running, and how many people it takes to operate the equipment. This is just the farming system. It is complex and requires a significant input to operate smoothly. Now I will show you a more detailed picture of harvesting the corn silage. You can see how the machine chops the entire corn stalk into bite-sized pieces. Remember that this is the green corn plant and the kernels are still very soft and edible for the cows. Now notice how large the machine is and how dangerous it can be. Safety is the most important thing on the farm. A machine like this can seriously hurt or kill a person in a few seconds. Farmers must remain cautious every minute they are working around any machine. They cannot allow children or inexperienced people around the machines at any time. I fly my drone over the machines from a safe distance away from the moving machinery. Each load of feed hauled to the farm is weighed so the farm knows exactly how much feed is stored for the animals. The calculations will tell the farmer if he has enough feed for the year for the animals. As the feed is hauled in the trucks to the farm, it must be unloaded, pushed up onto the pile, and then packed down with the weight of the tractor. The air must all be pushed out of the pile to prevent it from spoiling. A fermentation process takes place, similar to the process used to make yogurt. Once all the feed is in the pile, it is covered to prevent rain and snow from spoiling the feed. Each truck can haul up to 30 loads a day between the field and the storage area, so a new truck is arriving at the pile approximately every 7 minutes. The trucks are unloaded automatically, with the driver never leaving the driver's seat. If you notice, this is the same tractor that was shown earlier tilling the fields. We just installed the pusher blade on the front. It is a very powerful machine. I would like you to also look behind the tractor and the feed pile at what is the manure pit. This concrete structure holds about 6 months of manure, so it must be emptied twice a year. The next video will show how we empty the pit. Also notice the equipment sitting in the background waiting to be used in the fields. Again, think about all the impact these machines have on the dairy industry. Who made them? What was required to make them? And what keeps them running? A few minutes ago I showed you the manure pit. Here is how we empty the pit by applying the manure to the fields. This is the smelliest job on the farm, but very valuable. We pump the manure from the lagoon or the pit, the wet, smelly storage area, through a hose directly to the tractor in the field. The tractor drags the hose around as it moves through the field. You can see how the hose is laid all the way back to the farm from the field. This is similar to a garden hose, but is much larger. We can travel about 1 mile from the farm to a field with just the hose. It will take about 2 weeks to empty the pit and to the fields. The tractor has a computer monitor to control the amount of manure being applied to the field, and it is also GPS controlled for self-driving. The driver of the tractor also controls the pump, which is right at the pit, to control the amount of manure being pumped through the hose. It is all remote controlled from the tractor. Now that you have seen the mechanics of the dairy farm, you will be able to see the impact this industry has on the economy of your state. Almost every life in the state is touched by the dairy industry. This chart is pretty complex, yet it only shows a part of the complete picture. I will not go through the whole process, but it is easy to see how everything is connected and relies on the cows producing the milk. Notice how everything ends up with you as the consumer, all because the cows produce the milk to be used in the cheese, ice cream, butter, yogurt, and other foods. So next time you see a cow, say thank you. Next time you see a farmer, thank them all. One closing comment is the fact that safety is the number one concern on a farm. Have you noticed all the large machinery working around the farm? Look at how large this machine is. The farmer cannot help but take the whole road. When you and your family are traveling down a road and come upon a piece of farm equipment ahead of you, please be respectful of everyone's safety. Please stay a safe distance behind the slow-moving equipment. Most farm machinery is much heavier than an automobile, and they don't always have side mirrors, so they cannot see behind themselves. If you would come in contact with the farm equipment, you will be the loser. Your car could be squashed, and the tractor could roll over and hurt the farmer. Please be safe and respectful of farm equipment. Keep in mind, the dairy industry adds $45 billion to the state's economy every year. Thank you for watching this video and supporting the dairy industry in Wisconsin.